Are you a guy who's been dumped either by your wife or your girlfriend and you desperately want them back? You want to get back into a relationship with them. You just don't know what to do. You're wondering, can they actually fall back in love with you again? The good news is that yes, they can fall back in love with you, but it is going to take some specific actions on your part, and that's what we're getting into today in this video. The exact steps you need to take to increase and maximize your chances of getting them to fall back in love with you. Hi, I'm Jeff Campbell from DivorcedParentsClub.com, and I'm on a mission to help divorced guys navigate the world that we now find ourselves in. I got dumped a little over a year ago and I've had to figure things out, and I'm making videos based on my experiences of what I've learned. So I'm glad you're here with me. Let's get into today's topic. So the first question, of course, is how often do exes reunite? How often do couples come back together again after a breakup? The good news for you is that it happens between 40 and 50% of the time. That's a lot. But what are the reasons that these couples come back together again? Because I think the reasons are going to determine the long-term success of a reunited couple. So one is familiar. There's just comfort in the familiar. That's why people who grew up in toxic home environments sometimes replicate that in their adult lives, even though they know it's toxic, but it's familiar. And so when a couple comes back together again, it's like putting on an old pair of pants that you've worn for years. It's just familiar. That, unfortunately, is not really a great reason to reunite, though. Next is they're lonely or you're lonely. Maybe you're both lonely and you want companionship. You want that affection. You want sex, if we're being honest. And it's just easy to do that with somebody that you've already engaged in those things with. That, again, is also not a great reason to reunite. You really need something more than that if you're going to build and recreate an even more successful relationship. Next, of course, is that you're still in love with them, or they're still in love with you, or maybe both. And that is a better reason, because those feelings never went away, and maybe they did in the other person, but they can be reignited, and we're going to get into that a little bit later in the video. The next reason is that they find that the grass isn't greener on the other side of the pasture like maybe they thought it was. Maybe they left you for someone else. They got into a relationship with them and they realized, hey, this guy's all wrong. My ex was way better in most regards. And then they come back to you after realizing that. And the last is regret. Maybe they broke up with you in the heat of an argument and it wasn't really what they wanted to do, but they stuck by their guns. Ego sometimes gets in the way of us doing the right thing, and they broke up with you in the heat of the moment, but they really didn't want that, and then they later really regret that. That's another good reason to come back together again, although it's also worth pointing out you should never break up with someone unless you really mean it and are willing to actually walk away. So how do lost feelings come back? That's another important topic we've got to get into. So for you, if you're the guy who got dumped, the best way to reignite your feelings, your passion, is what I call fake it till you make it. A lot of people are critical of that term, but for me, it perfectly illustrates this point. And that is that anything that you do, the first time you do it, it's gonna feel unnatural. It's gonna feel foreign, whether that's riding a bike, learning to drive, or being in a relationship with someone. It's just not going to feel simple and comfortable and easy at first. It gets that way over time by practice. The more you do something, the more natural it starts to feel, and relationships are really no different in that regard. So if you come back together again with your ex, it might feel a little bit awkward at first. I want you to just go through the motions, reconnect with them, start to do romantic things with them, even if it doesn't feel 100% natural at first, because over time it will. Then for them, they need to fall back in love with you. If you got dumped by your ex and she went away and you're trying to get her back, she's got to fall back in love with you. And the best way for her to do that is by you getting back to being the person that she fell in love with originally. So get back to doing the things that you did when you first met her. A lot of us that get into long-term relationships tend to start getting complacent over time. We stop doing the things that bring us joy. We stop hanging out with our friends and our family. We stop doing hobbies that we love. We stop going to the gym as much. We stop dressing well, and we get just kind of complacent and lackadaisical about our spouse or our significant other that we're with. And all of the things that made them fall in love with us, we stop doing. And that's ironic, of course, because then it's not a surprise that many, many, many times a woman will fall out of love with her guy because he's not doing those things anymore. And it happens slowly over time, but with women in particular, they don't really communicate that. They're not letting you know along the way, hey, I'm not really as in love with you as I used to be. And it's really because you've gained 20 pounds. You mostly just wear t-shirts and shorts now, and you don't go to the gym, and you don't, go to the gun range or whatever hobbies it was that you used to do that brought you joy. And they're not going to tell you that. They're just going to kind of wait till the feelings of love have gone completely away, and then you're going to get dumped. That's exactly what happened in my case, probably what happened in your case too. Up to 80% of the time, it is the woman who dumps the guy. That's just the way it is. That's just the harsh reality. And most of the time, they're not going to give us warning shots that that's coming down the pipeline. Real quick before we continue, if you like this video and you want to see more videos like it, smash that like button and the subscribe button and the bell notification button too. That way you get notified of future videos that I put out, but YouTube will also show you more videos that it knows you're going to love, and it helps me grow my channel and help more people. So let's say that your ex reaches out and you agree to get together and talk. Maybe you even agree to go on a date together. What do I want you to focus on to help rekindle this relationship and bring them back to you? First, I want you to have no expectations of them. I don't want you to go into this thinking that, oh, well, I'm just going to show them that they need to be back together again with me. I need them to be back together again with me. Don't have any expectations. Just get together, have fun, see where it goes, and enjoy their company. Worst case scenario, you might just get sex out of it, and that's okay too. But don't place any expectations on her. That may lead to her feeling pressured, and that may send her running in the opposite direction. Next, I want you to relive happy memories. Things that you've done together, places you've gone, things you've seen, amazing memories that you've shared with her. I want you to bring those up, but not in a manipulative way, and not in an overbearing way where you're just rattling off a bunch of stuff. Just, bring something up casually if it relates to what you're talking about in the course of your conversation. Appreciate them for exactly who they are. A lot of people, both men and women, tend to fall in love with someone, but then secretly kind of think, well, I don't really like that aspect. I'm really going to try and get them to change that, and I'm going to get them to change this, whether it's, I'm going to get them to quit smoking, or I'm going to get them to drop 20 pounds, I'm going to get them to dress a certain way, or whatever it is. A lot of us have these expectations of other people instead of just appreciating them for exactly who they are. Doesn't mean we can't try and inspire them and motivate them to improve their lives and improve who they are. But you never want to try and force that or make that your agenda. You want them to come to those decisions on their own, and they want to feel your love and support for exactly who they are right now, not who you think they could be, because that's just a recipe for failure. Next, I want you to make sure that she feels safe, heard, and understood. What do I mean by that? Well, for starters, in order to feel safe, you've got to maintain your center. You've got to maintain your frame, as they say. You can't be losing your shit or breaking down, getting angry, crying, begging, pleading, being needy. All of those are incredibly unattractive behaviors that will not make her feel safe. Your strong masculine presence is what's going to make her feel safe. So she needs to see that. A lot of people throw the term around of toxic masculinity, and really that's a bullshit term. Masculinity is not toxic. And true masculinity is not misogynistic, it's not angry, it's not domineering, it's none of those things. That is not the definition of masculinity. Masculinity is strong, it's confident, it's loving, it's caring, it's supporting, it's nurturing, but it's not emotional, it's not needy, it's not clingy, it's not angry. It's maintaining your frame, keeping control of your emotions instead of letting your emotions control you. Then I want you to take ownership of past mistakes. After all, it takes two people to make or break a relationship, and you have your part in whatever it was that drove her away. You've got to recognize what that is. You got to take ownership of it. You've got to work to correct whatever that was, and you've got to apologize for it. But I don't want you to apologize for the same thing over and over and over and over again. That's going to make you look weak and not masculine in her eyes. So apologize for it once, own it. Don't make excuses for it. Take extreme ownership, as Jocko Willenick says, and then move forward and let your actions show her that you mean it. I mentioned this earlier, but I want you to avoid any type of pressure on her of what you're doing. Avoid trying to label what you're doing. Avoid saying, oh, it's so great that we're back together again. You're not back together again yet. And you will never get there if you put too much pressure on her. That's gonna make her feel unsafe and likely running in the opposite direction. Take things slow. Let them progress naturally. You're not just starting back where you were the day before she said she wanted out. You're really starting from scratch, and you're rebuilding that trust, that safety, that commitment. And you're going to let her be in the driver's seat of deciding when to label what you're doing or when to get fully back together again. Your job is just to make her feel safe, heard, and understood, and have fun while you're doing that. I mentioned masculinity earlier, but as the guy, you need to take the lead. That doesn't mean being domineering, as I mentioned earlier, but a strong masculine man does take the lead. He's not like, oh, I don't know, what do you want to do? And that kind of thing. And we all fall into that pattern sometimes. I know I did too with my ex. But you need to take the lead. You need to show her that you're confident and you have the ability to lead the relationship, whether that's picking a place for dinner, doing something fun after dinner, and doing whatever it is you two want to do in life. That doesn't mean steamrolling her, and it doesn't mean never listening to her ideas. But you need to be calm, confident, and be willing to lead and not be wishy-washy. Lastly, don't look to her to make you happy. You can't make anybody else happy, and they can't make you happy. Only you can make you happy. So focus on making yourself happy, making yourself feel whole and complete without anybody else. Then if you're whole and complete and she's whole and complete, and then you just come together as two whole and complete people enjoying each other's company as opposed to a codependent mess. So if you're not quite there yet, you haven't actually gotten together to talk about possibly reconciling, how do you show them that you still love them? So first, I would make my intentions clear, and I would do that exactly one time, and I would be crystal clear, hey, I understand that you don't want to be with me anymore. I understand that. I'm going to respect that. Just so you know, I still am in love with you, and I would love to try and work on things with you if you wanted to do that. And if you ever reach a point in the future where you want to do that, let me know. Then that's it. You don't ever bring it up again. You don't plead. You don't beg. You don't get angry. You don't bombard them with texts or emails or phone calls. That's it. You say it one time, you're crystal clear, and you let it go, and then you go no contact. We hear the term no contact a lot, especially on YouTube videos. And basically what that means is that once you've done that, you don't contact them again for any reason. That means no texting, no calling, no email, no stalking them on social media, no liking their things on social media, no commenting on social media. It's basically as if they no longer exist in your eyes. That's what you want them to feel. That's the way to get them to miss you. If they feel like you're never truly going away, then they're going to kind of feel smothered and maybe stalked a little bit, if I'm being honest. And so you have to let them miss you. And that might take a little while. And it might be really hard for you to, have your phone in your hand and you desperately want to text them and just let them know you're thinking about them. And surely if they knew that, maybe they'd come back. That is not going to work, guys. So don't do that. Go full no contact, where you don't have any contact with them for any reason on any platform. But if they reach out to you, assume they want to see you, assume they are missing you. Then make a date to get together and talk, or go out to a restaurant, meet for drinks, whatever it is. Then set that date. Then ideally get off of the phone, and then let that anticipation build prior to that first initial meeting back together again. But I also want you to be focusing on yourself during this time too. As I mentioned earlier, get back to doing the things that bring you joy, hitting the gym, hanging out with friends, doing hobbies that maybe you had forgotten about or stopped doing along the way. Get back to doing those things too. That will improve you both physically, mentally, and emotionally, and that's going to make you that much more attractive either to her, or if it doesn't work out, to the next person that you end up being with. They're going to hear through the grapevine, if you haven't actually gotten back together again yet, they're going to hear through the grapevine just how well you're doing. And don't be afraid to date other people during this time too. You don't need to get into a serious relationship. You don't need a rebound situation, but it's okay to just kind of date and get out there as opposed to just sitting around at home hoping they're going to call you, because that might not happen, or if it does, it might take weeks. I know the woman who is now my girlfriend, we went out on one date, and then, maybe 10 days later, after I was unsuccessful in trying to get a second date with her, she texted me and said that she didn't think that we were compatible. And I was like, okay. And I let it go. I walked away and I didn't do anything else with regard to her. And then lo and behold, a few days later, I got a text from her saying that she missed me and wanted to get together. And we had a second date, and we've pretty much been together ever since then. While I was not dating the woman that is now my girlfriend, I was dating other women and getting together and having fun. And I was moving on with my life as if I was never going to hear from her again. But luckily I did, and we're now together, and we're very happy, and we're going to see where that goes. So you want to let them miss you. You want to give them that opportunity. You don't want to smother them or bombard them or just make them feel like they can't get away from you. They've got to miss you in order to want to come back to you. Anyway, I hope you like this video. Please leave me a comment down below. Tell me what you'd like to see in a future video. But for now, I'll see you in the next video.